Angus Young, how you doing?
Good, Becko.
The Offspring.
How's it going, Becko?
Dave Grohl, how you going, mate?
Good, man.
Pete, it's been a long time coming.
Oh, Becko, hasn't it indeed?
We go inside the dressing room, speak to the biggest names in music,
Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones.
and crack open their Esky.
This is exactly how I imagined you, by the way, sitting opposite me with a vodka and orange.
You're a discerning chap. This is The Rider.
Hey, it's Becko. Welcome back to The Rider. It is so good to be back playing you plenty of new music and also bringing back some great stuff from some of your favourite artists. And last week, it was Kevin Mitchell from the band Jebediah. 13 years since their last album, and they haven't gone away. They've been on tour. You would have been to plenty of spring-loaded shows over the last few years. In fact, they scraped one in the middle of COVID. But a brand new album is out called Oiks from Jebediah. And if you want to go back and check the reason behind that name, go and check out the latest ep on Spotify and Apple. Of course, check him out on the road as well. On the road with Magic Dirt from July, doing plenty of dates right across the country. All the details on Jebediah's socials. But someone else who is also on the road coming up. It's very exciting. The Hoodoo Gurus. The Gurus are doing a celebration. 40 years of Stone Age Romeos. Can you believe it? 40 years. And that was a killer album. I had to remind myself how many great songs were on Stone Age Romeos. Of course, there was I Want You Back. And this is when the band came from Perth and they moved to Sydney and they were doing a lot of pub gigs. But this album was a true breakthrough. My Girl, Tojo, Leilani, cracker album, and they're doing plenty of dates right across the country as well. 40 years of Stone Age Romeos with the Hoodoo Gurus. Lots of pub dates as well. Check them out online. Just go to Empire Touring. This is
The Rider.
Now, this week on The Rider, we're sticking around that Perth side of the country. Brand new music from this band, Eskimo Joe. This debut happened in 1998. We're going to actually hear more about how that went down and how, in fact, they got their break on national radio with Sweater, and the rest is kind of history. But there was plenty of great moments along the way. I remember I was living in Perth when I heard this song for the first time, From the Sea. And we honestly were all so proud because they were such a Perth band. And this song went to number one right across the country. But this one did even better. It got him a stack of arias as well. Black Fingernails, Red Wine. One of only a few albums I can think of where there wasn't a dud song. It just rolled on. And an incredible, incredible album. And we haven't hit the 20-year mark for that one yet, but remember this one when this came on Triple M all those years ago, Foreign Land. Now in 2024, a brand new song. In fact, their first new song in 5 years. First time. And it's so good to see Eskimo Joe just having a song that's so well received right across the country. The first time, you can stream it right now. And on Zoom, there he is. Kav, how are you?
Anyway, thank you for having me back on your podcast.
Mate, it's great to have you on, and I can't believe it's been about a year because your solo album was out about a year ago now, and you're in the same studio, I think, from memory, and now it's time for new Eskimo Joe.
Talk Eskies instead.
I mean, I remember the single when it came out, the solo one. It was very much Eskimo Joe. Like I could have heard that quite easily on an Eskies album, but the first time is out. And how long ago was this recorded? Was it pretty recent?
Pretty recent. We kind of finished up last year, like doing a whole bunch of like pub shows, going back out into the suburbs and playing to a lot of our fans who are kind of all living out in the burbs with kids, you know, and don't have the time to go into the city to see shows. So we did a bunch of those, and then we finished off the year by playing this big festival called Good Things. Which was wicked. It was like playing the big day out of old. It was like 30,000 deep in front of us. And then we were like, well, let's record a new song. We'd kind of set the deadline for ourselves to do it. But we had this kind of electricity from coming off the stage, in these massive festivals where, you'd sing a song like From the Sea and you have the whole entire crowd singing back at you. So we got into the studio behind us and cracked into it end of December, first week of January, finished the whole thing off. And then it was this crazy schedule where we had I think we had a photo shoot and then we had to finish off all of the song, and then Joel was going to get on a plane and fly the next day, and then literally at the 11th hour, where it was probably about 10:30 at night, and we'd been drinking shots of mezcal all day just to kind of keep the spirits up, literally, and then we kind of at the 11th hour we're like, shit, we need to write a bridge. So we were literally writing down, and I was recording it behind the curtain there and recording the vocals, and now when I listen to the song, I'm like, oh, I can't imagine that song without the bridge. It's such an important part of the song. But yeah, we just had this really finite time. We had to get it done, and yeah, we just did it.
Do you find you're a bit better under pressure?
I think deadlines are really important, but I mean, the way that we're doing it in Eskimo Joe at the moment is we're not jumping in and making a full record. We're just doing a song at a time, and the reason why is because, we'll do something, and if it's not working, we'll just kind of put it to the side. But then, if it does work, we'll go a bit further. And the thing with us with making records is we take it really seriously. We don't just kind of get in and jam and go, that's the song. We really kind of go over everything with a fine-tooth comb until we're like, well, that's as good as we can get it. But in that process, a deadline is really helpful, because otherwise you'll just keep cooking until it's overcooked. So there's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, and the idea of giving yourself time to just let the song happen is important. But also, if you do that, I mean, there's this one song I just keep going round and round and sing it over and over again. I'm convinced it's going to be a hit, but I still haven't managed to record it because I just can't quite get there. And that's a classic case of an overcooked song. So, yeah.
So you find those ones are often the ones that just never quite work out because you keep tweaking and tweaking. But then again, sometimes you hear these stories.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think that a good idea should ever go to waste. So they always kind of go into the back, pocket, and then they're just there for a rainy day when you need an idea. And you just, the thing about songwriting is people kind of romanticize this idea that, you have this feeling, and then you by the light of the moon, you write down this, this heartfelt tune. And yeah, that there is elements of that are true, but a lot of it is also just the craft, going over things until you've built this really well-made chair, if you know what I mean. It's there's a bit of craft involved. So sometimes if you've got some song that you thought was going to be a cracker in your back pocket, and you get to a point where oh, we don't have a chorus for this song, you'd be like, this chorus was great on that song, and then somehow you marry the two, and then you rewrite it so it all kind of fits together. And then I have interviews with you where I'm explaining what I was writing about, and I'm like, well, two completely different things. Whereas I think the first time is a good example of a song that was, we started writing it we had an idea of what we wanted to write about first. We wanted to write a song about nostalgia and looking back. And we'd had that conversation on a plane ride, me and Joel, him over the back of the seat going, we need to write a song about nostalgia. And I was like, okay, good. And then I had a chorus idea that came to me. You can't really see the piano behind me, that it's got the cover pulled over it, but I kind of came up with a chorus and sent a little iPhone message, and we just, again, we had this idea of where the destination we wanted to get to. So it was quite a linear song. We didn't carve up any old songs to make this new song.
It's surprising because I normally by default think of bands going in and recording, I don't know, 14 songs and picking 10 or something, but it's kind of surprising to hear you go in and just doing a song.
Yeah, I think there's something about making an album because you circle around an idea, and if you look at the last solo thing I did, I mean, that song Ghosts of the Past, which became the single, which you were pointing out could have been an Eskies song. I mean, I think that came along a little bit later in the piece because I'd been kind of circling around this idea of what I wanted to write about, and then you kind of arrive at this place because you've already worked through all these other ideas, and maybe you're a little bit less precious. Whereas I think with Eskimo Joe, we've made lots of records, and where we don't have to have those big arguments over what kind of chorus we want to write, because we've had all those arguments in the past. So it's a much easier process in that way. In saying that, there's always a moment of tension every time you write a song. I mean, that's kind of important. You got to break through that thing. But I think with us, it's just about time, like we've only got so many hours in the day and weeks and months in the year that we can actually do this. And we've all got these other projects that we do outside of Eskies. So the benefit of doing that is when we come back to Eskimo Joe to do a tune, we're so happy to be in Eskimo Joe. We're like, well, yeah, this is what we do. We do this is the music that we make. We're not trying to make it anything that it's not. So yeah, I think 1 or 2 songs a year is probably works pretty well for us at the moment.
And you feel you work better in a sort of a comfortable environment, your own studio, not one of those big budget, charged by the hour kind of deals?
See, I'm the romantic in the group. I'm always just like, we need to get a studio on a cliff top and, but I think it just comes down to necessity. I mean, I've got a space. I feel pretty comfy in it. We can pretty much make a great sounding record in this space. But in saying that, if someone was like, oh, here's your schedule today. You're going to fly to France and you're going to record in some, amazing studio where they do mix with the masters in the south of France. We'd all be like, fuck yeah, sign us up for that.
Yeah.
But I think we just, we've all got families and, it's a healthier lifestyle for us just to do it, down the road from where we live because we spend way too much time away from our families already.
It's also nice when the record company pays for it too, back in...
Yeah. Record what are those things? No, I don't think they exist anymore, do they?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, how is it going? Because you've always been the band to, I think, try new things and do it really well. And you were doing, crowdfunding of one of your albums, around 10 years ago, long before everyone else was doing that kind of stuff. And self-funding your albums, and you must get a lot more satisfaction.
Yeah, I think there's, pros and cons with all of that stuff. I mean, I think when we first did crowdfunding, it was pretty brand new, and some people were kind of skeptical of the process. We loved the idea of trying it out because we were like, well, this could be the future of how people make records. You ask the fans, like, do you want to hear a record? Great, chip in, let's do this. And I think that's still the kind of mold moving forward because, there's records don't sell, so like I don't even know how record companies make their money. It's crazy. But there's something about record labels, for a long time these people were experts at selling albums and they know how to market an album. They have relationships with people, and so I think a great record done through a great record label is going to be a better record, because it's going to reach more people. They're working through a company that specializes in selling albums. So when you do the crowdfunding thing, you've kind of sold the record before, it's come out. So you don't chart, you don't get all those kind of, what would you call it? There's probably a word for it, but those kind of those accolades, like vanity matrix, we'll call it. Yeah. You're not part of the vanity matrix of, charting and those kinds of things, even though you might sell just as many records. But we do live in this time of complete shifting sands. But the interesting thing for us is we've almost been a band for 30 years. So when we go out on the road now, it's like a completely different landscape. It's not about us being cool or uncool anymore. We just occupy this Eskimo Joe shaped hole in the music industry.
And I mean, it's pretty crazy when you think about 1998. The song's the first time. You got to actually tell me about how everything all started with Sweater. Like you got a bit of radio airplay on Triple J. I know that. You must have set in a bunch of CDs or tapes or whatever, and all of a sudden was it spontaneous when you jumped on that plane?
Pretty much. I mean, we'd won this kind of band competition in Perth called the Campus Band Competition, which gave you a ticket out of Perth, which was very expensive in the 90s. And you also got to, play at the National Campus Band Final, which was pretty exciting. And then if you won, you'd win the prize was to record in Sydney. And so we won the whole thing and we got to record this EP. And then, unbeknownst to us, the place where we recorded it just sent the CD off to Triple J because that's what you do. We didn't even think to do that because we were from Perth. We thought maybe we'd sell 500 CDs, at this place called the Grosvenor Backroom and get what we called Perth Gold. But lo and behold, it got played on the radio by Jane Gazzo, who was on Recovery and stuff. She's still a journo doing the rounds. So she was the first one to play us on the radio, and as soon as it hit the radio, we were like, well, shit, we better start doing some touring. So we just got on the road and toured for 2 10-week slots in a row where we just went up and down the East Coast. And it was a time when the guild fees were compulsory. So we'd play like a lunchtime gig to a bunch of poor uni students eating a sandwich, like as we're like playing rock and roll right in their ear, and then that night we'd play at some pub for an equally shit amount of money. But we just did that up and down the East Coast until we started to garner some fans, and then saved just enough money to record another EP off our own backs, and then off that recording we got signed to a label called Modular, which had all these great bands like the Living End and the Avalanches and stuff on it.
And you made it onto Recovery finally as well with Jane and Dylan, I'm assuming, as well.
Yeah, well, that happened early on in the piece.
Yeah,
and,
right.
We didn't have any press photos or anything like that. So the hilarious part of it was that all we had was this CD, which we'd made the CD artwork from a knitwear catalog. You'd go to op shops and find these knitwear catalogs.
Yeah, I actually remember the CD cover. Yes.
Yeah. And so we'd found all these dudes, who were in the knitwear, like in sweaters, looking all like, amazing. And we just put our names underneath it. And so when we got there to play Recovery, there was these giant, pictures of these dudes from the CD. And we got there, these little 18-year-old, like, pimply guys. And they were like, who are you? And we're like, we're Eskimo Joe. And they were like, who are these guys? And we're like, oh, yeah, that's because we didn't think that we'd make it that far. Yeah. What
a time, though, because I mean, it really was a golden age for a lot of us, really. When it came to music as well. And it also must have been an interesting dilemma for you coming from Perth. I know Jebediah had the same dilemma. They decided to stay in Perth, and you did the same thing. Whereas a lot of bands would jump on a plane and just relocate to Melbourne or go to London or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, Jeb's probably gave us a bit of that inspiration that it was kind of doable to stay in Perth. But we also, every time we got on stage, as we were doing these ginormous 10-week tours, the first thing we'd say is hello, we are Eskimo Joe from Fremantle, Western Australia. And there'd be one dude in the crowd be like, woo! And we realized there was a power in that, being from a place and being like, this is who we are. But also then we would come back to Freo, and what we discovered is it was a great place to create. It was completely removed from the industry, and there's something creatively potent about the place. And, you can just see that from the sheer number of bands that have come out, ourselves and, John Butler and San Cisco and Tame Impala, to name a few. So it's just for a tiny little place, it really does punch well above its weight. And I think there is something in the water here. There is definitely a creative juju that really helps people out. So, we decided to stay, and then after us, other bands decided to kind of call themselves, Perth or Freo bands, because it felt like it was attainable, to do that.
Well, imagine that. Imagine if bands were actually moving to Perth for their to kickstart their careers.
I would not recommend it. I mean, again, I love living here, but fucking hell, it costs a lot of money every time you got to go do a gig.
I can't believe it's 20 years since Black Fingernails. 20 years.
20 years since A Song Is a City. And then, in another 2 years, I think it'll be 20 years since Black Fingernails, yeah.
Bloody hell. That was an album which, I mean, obviously, that's probably the one where you guys really broke it across all the mainstream radio and everything like that. I mean, it's a long way off now, I guess a couple of years, but you're going to do the album in full and do one of those tours?
Well, we did that actually, when was it? The year before last even? Was it last year before? We played A Song of the City and Black Fingernails from start to finish, and as a double album tour, and that was an absolute joy because, we put so much time and effort into those records, and so much energy into, what song came next, and the little bridging tracks. We would argue over this. We wrote songs that were, specifically to be the closing tracks on these albums. We took it, it was an era when people only listened to the albums, that reigned supreme. So we took it very seriously. So when we did go out and play these as a double album show, the albums did all the work. It was great. We'd already put all the work in, or we just had to rock up and play them, and it was so much fun. I could do that show forever. It was so much fun.
There wasn't a dud. There aren't many albums in my collection that have that. That's one of them.
That's lovely to hear. I mean, that's certainly what we were aiming for. I think at the time we were calling it Thriller 2 was the working title. But no, we it was a similar feeling to where we're at now, where we were thinking a lot about nostalgia at that point in time. We were thinking about the bands that we'd grown up with, like In Excess and Icehouse and Eurythmics, and these bands that seemed so mysterious to us that if you press play on that record, you know exactly what album you were listening to. And we'd had, you make records where you're kicking against the album before, where you're kind of almost like, oh yeah, well, the last record was a rock and roll record, so this is going to be a hip hop album, because you never want to make the same album twice. But that just happened to be a really nice coming together of like ambition and just kicking against the right things. We'd kind of made an album that was, pretty. Songs of the City was a bit more of a slow burn. It was introspective enough, and then it had the hit, which was From the Sea, so it had given us a little bit of a taste of what it meant to be on commercial radio. And so we were like, hell yeah, let's do that. Let's make a record where there's like every song is like From the Sea.
Yeah, and that's the thing. From the Sea was, I was living in Perth at the time, and I was so damn proud. Yeah. The film clip was filmed in, was it the Brizzy swimming pool in the valley? Yeah, that's right.
And it was their hottest day on record. And all we were allowed to do was put our ankles in the pool. And I just remember if you look at that video clip, we just look like we're boiling our asses off. Luckily, we came from Perth, so we were like slightly prepared for the heat. But yeah, it was a lot. Being
going on these big sort of day on the green kind of tours as well, which you're doing a lot of. Is it kind of like, do you guys look at each other and go, oh, well, this is it now? We're doing wine tours.
Yeah, no, we love it. I mean, we've done a lot of these nostalgia kind of vibes. We haven't done a day on the green, though I'm totally up for it if they ever ask us. But no, we did this. The last run of festivals we just did was called the Lookout Festival, which was us and Live and Incubus and Birds of Tokyo and the Super Jesus. And so that was a similar thing. It was like a lot of bands from those kind of aughties and 90s kind of bands. And even it's funny on those tours, like we still feel like the indie kids. Even though we crossed over, as you said, into this commercial world, we still feel like we're the indie kids on that tour. But that was great, and Spring Loaded was another one which was really great like that. And then Good Things is what we played at the end of last year, which was just killer. So there was some new bands, but then some bunch of nostalgia bands as well. So that feeling. It feels pretty good. Like you get out there and like I was mentioning before, it's like you don't feel like you're riding this wave of like, we're on the wave of success, or we're on the other way on the other side of the wave now. I can feel the vibe starting to shift. It's like we don't belong in that world anymore. We've entered this new place where we're not quite a heritage band yet, but we're kind of in this purple patch of nostalgia where people seem just absolutely happy everywhere we go. They're like, oh yeah, I love these guys. I know this song, So yeah, going out and doing those shows and then playing a new song as well was great.
The first time is the first of many. How many more have you got in the bank?
We've got another one that we're working on at the moment. Because we're in the middle of doing this big kind of 20-odd date acoustic tour at the moment, which has been really fun. We just started that. But when we're backstage, we're just kind of chipping away at the new song. And I reckon, probably mid-year, we'll try and get in there and record it and probably put out another song before the year's out. One of the reasons why is because the first time is just received so well. Like we've been going into radio and everyone's like, I'm not just talking ourselves up, but it's just, we've been into radio many, many times and people genuinely seem pretty happy that we're releasing music. So we're like, all right, if you guys are happy, we'll release some more music. We're also like in a really good space with each other as people. Like we're pretty happy being in a room, making music. No one feels like, they're not being heard, and those things are an important part of the journey as well. Like why do bands stay together for a long time? Because they like each other. That's the secret to success. So we enjoy hanging out with each other, and because we have all these other projects outside of Eskies, we come back together and everyone's happy making an Eskimo Joe song. We're not trying to make anything that it's not. We know what it is. We're really happy to be in that band. And then we can step away and, Joel does a lot of pop production, so he's pretty happy making super duper pop music over there. I do my Kav introspective solo records, so, I get to kind of get all of that out of my system there, and then we come together and just do what we do.
Imagine when you're on a long, grueling tour, you're going to naturally get a little bit tired of your brothers, but because you all have other things going on, you actually would enjoy slotting back into what you have done over the years and be like just old times, like. putting on a comfortable pair of jeans.
Yeah, a comfortable pair of very tight black jeans, I think.
Getting tighter by the year.
Yeah, totally. Like stuffing walnuts into a condom.
Fuck, it's so true. Tell me about the acoustic tour, because many bands have done it, and I think it's just brilliant because normally the fans don't get to see an entire show like that. And you're doing a smaller venues as well, aren't you? So you're doing a lot of suburban and country venues, that kind of thing?
Yeah, they're theatres. So we're not playing any city shows on this particular run. We might come back and do some at the end. But yeah, we're just going out into the burbs and out into the country towns where a lot of our fans live these days. And, you know, they seem pretty happy to get a babysitter and go 2 minutes down the road to their local theatre or whatever. But yeah, they're these kind of like, you know, 1,000-ish capacity theatres. And we get to do these shows that are just really intimate, and we get to do these long-winded stories about how the songs came together, and people get to hear the songs in this stripped-back way of, you know, how they were when we first wrote them. But then what we've been doing, because of the vibe of the show, we've been going out to the merch desk every night and, you know, chatting to people and inviting them to tell us their stories. And it's been amazing. Like on the weekend, there was this one family, this Japanese guy, and he immigrated to Australia in 2006, and the first 2 CDs he bought was A Song as a City and Black Fingernails Red Wine. So that became his Australian band, and then he got married, and he's had 3 kids, and all his kids were there. And so Eskimo Joe is like the one band that they all agree to listen to. It's like their family music. And then when we played the Good Things Festival, like one of the sons, who's like, looks like he's about, you know, 17, 18 now, was up the front, you know, because he'd grown up with it, because that's what their family listens to. And that stuff like gives me goosebumps, you know, because it's become so much more than just us being in this band, you know, trying to be ambitious at times or whatever. It's like these people have genuinely taken our music into their worlds, and it's become part of their family life. And I love that. And I think we only get to have those kinds of conversations at these acoustic style venues, because even if it was the same size venue doing a rock and roll show, it's just a different energy. You know, you get on stage and you're pointing, and it's like you're a fruit seller, you know, selling, like, come and buy my apples, you know, you're like, it's all very, you know, Greek theater. And then you do these acoustic shows, and you just bring people into a different place. So when you see them out there, they approach you differently. You know, it's a little bit less baby reindeer, which is good.
And do you ever have people try to start a conversation during a song? Because it's so intimate.
Yeah. Well, yeah, some people do kind of chat away, but then, you know, we just launch into a song. Luckily, Stu from the band is really funny, and so he'll just kind of turn it into a joke pretty quickly.
So I remember going to, I think it was Tim Finn at somewhere like the Enmore, but it was a real sort of intimate style, and literally people were just talking to him during a song, and he would start talking back. In fact,
yeah, right.
Up to a certain point, it's funny.
Yes, exactly.
I saw some photos of you guys when you first started off. Your hair has come a long way, by the way.
But well, you know, it's hit its apex now. You know, at this point in my life, it's a good time. You know, good time to let the hair do the talking. But yeah, I think we can really kind of look at the eras of our band and know exactly where we're. Like we did this nostalgia clip for the first time. And it's interesting, like I look at all the different, like all of that footage. I haven't looked at that footage since, you know, we actually were there recording it. And you can tell exactly what era it is in each bit by my haircut. You know, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's girl. Oh, yeah, there you go. The rock mullet's coming out. We're entering the black fingernails era. Yep. Oh, it's all getting high to the sky now. Yeah. Well,
there's one where it was like, I know you toured with the Offspring, I think, your first huge tour, but it was like you had the Offspring hair as well with the sort of the hair gel twisted up, and it was.
So that was when we were punks, when we first started. We were very punky. Yeah.
Hey, look, you got your hair. Mine's getting a little bit thinner by the day, so you
probably
know.
The only reason why we're still a band is that we all still have our hair. So once one person's hair goes, they either get kicked out of the band or that's the end of the band forever.
That's right. Well, now I've got to ask you about the rider, because you know, the rider would change over the years. It would change whether you're doing solo stuff, you know, and also, you know, when you pick up an aria, you can ask for a bottle of Bollinger or that kind of thing.
Yes.
But how has it changed over the years?
Well, you know, in the early days, we would probably go for what we thought was the fanciest beer, and put that on the rider and just hope that, you know, we would get the fancy beer. And that probably started off as like Crown Lager or something like that. And then probably went south to Tasmania, and we probably had some James Bogues on the rider for a little while. Then, you know, I think, we kind of jumped around all over the place, and now where the Peroni mid strengths are a big one on the rider. We love the Peroni mid strengths. And gin has been a pretty long stayer on the rider. I mean, a gin and tonic always goes down well. And then red wine, of course. I mean, come on, that's my jam. Wine called Woodlands, which is it's kind of from that Margaret River area, but it's from this particular area called Woolly Abrup, which is where the best vineyards are in Margaret River. Woodlands, I highly recommend it. Has listened to this podcast and wants to try some fantastic West Australian wine. Woodlands is good. They do make a very expensive bottle that, if you want to impress your friends, called Margaret's, which has won all of the big wine awards internationally. But anything by Woodlands is pretty spectacular.
That's the one thing I miss about Perth. Jumping in a car and you're driving down and you got some of the best wineries in the country. And I had my first bottle of Lewin Estate Art Series in Perth. And I'll never forget it. I think it's one of my favourite wines, and maybe we'll do a wine show together. We can just do that.
Yeah, I'm in for that. Yeah, let's do it.
Well, look, Kav, it's so good to chat to you, and congratulations on the song the first time, and can't wait to hear more of the Eskies. Good luck for the rest of the tour as well.
Thank you so much. And whereabouts are you broadcasting from again?
I'm back in Sydney. I was in Canberra, now back in Sydney.
I think we'll be kind of if you want to come along to, I think Liverpool we're playing in a couple of weeks, which is not too far out from the main drag.
I just noticed you're playing in my hometown of Queanbeyan in July, so I might have to go down and visit Mum and Dad, and I'll see you in Queanbeyan.
Do that. Yeah, perfect. Yep, back to Canberra. You thought you were out, but you're back in.
Yeah, I'm always going down. Don't worry. All right, mate. Kav, great to speak to you, and we'll catch up soon.
Cool. Thank you so much. All right, cheers.
What a top bloke, as always, Kav from Eskimo Joe. And I think there'll be some more new music coming out from the Eskies in the near future. I think he dropped enough hints that, they're working on something. Eskimo Joe also on the tour doing the acoustic sessions, whether you're in places like Liverpool, Western Sydney, Queanbeyan, Proserpine, Karratha, Carnarvon, Horsham, Moorabbin. All those dates online on the Eskimo Joe socials. Give the writer a podcast a follow. You can find it on LinkedIn and Instagram as well. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks, I reckon, with some really big guests to come. And of course, catch up on all the episodes you might have missed so far as well. This is The Writer with Becko. Catch you soon.